So in 18 it begins this way. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is there anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "Oh yes, you did laugh." And then in 21, we hop a little bit, and it says, "The Lord dealt with Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son who Sarah bore. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 years old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Now Sarah said, "God has brought laughter to me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." And she said, "Who would ever have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age." It is the story of Sarah, one of the stories of Sarah. There is no doubt about the promise made to Abraham and Sarah. They would conceive a child when it seemed impossible to conceive a child. Sarah heard the promise and laughed in doubt. And then, when she was challenged on it about laughing, she lied and said, "Nuh-uh. I didn't laugh." Yes, you did. You know you did. You broke your mother's teeth that night. If anyone was a candidate to not receive a promise of God because of lack of faith, Sarah would be that person. Apparently, that's not how it works, though. Sarah received what was promised to her. We can even read about it in Hebrews in 11, the writing we just finished for the last 5 weeks. This is really kind of astonishing to me, given the story that is told about Sarah in this moment. So the writer of that epistle says, "By faith Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised." What? Is that what happened? Is that what she did? Oh, that doubting God, that was faith. Does that make sense? She laughed at God. How can this be? It seems obvious to me that not everything is as straightforward in this holy book as we'd like to think it is. What God sees and knows about us is deeper and more complicated than what we see and know about ourselves or about each other. So we might look at Sarah's response and see that she doubted and see that she lied, and yet God sees Sarah's response and sees faith. Well, that's a little crazy making, isn't it? How can you judge somebody if you don't give a straightforward answer like that? Oh, that's right, we're not supposed to. How can we judge ourselves? How often do you berate yourself for not having enough faith? How often do you get mad at yourself or beat yourself down because you aren't holy enough or good enough for God? How often do you do that? How often do you say, well, if I had only prayed a little harder, maybe I would have gotten the thing I requested. It's obviously my fault. How often do we look at the lives of others and decide what's in their hearts based on circumstances that happen in their lives? When any of this happens, I think we need to remember Sarah. Sarah who doubted God. Sarah who laughed at the promise she was given. Sarah, the woman of faith, who received the promise of God. Sarah. The seemingly great contradiction, according to our eyes. The ways of God are murky and mysterious to us. That's okay. The God we trust in is made of grace and mercy and love. Made of it. So swimming in the murky and mysterious waters with God isn't scary. It's kind of like snorkeling. Snorkeling in murky and mysterious waters, looking for surprises of beauty and treasures. Not treasures that you keep and try to hold on to. Because if you're snorkeling, I don't know much about snorkeling. I did it once. So if you're, and I did it in Lake Max, so really it probably doesn't count for much like this, but I've heard stories. If you're snorkeling and you try to grab everything that's beautiful, not only are you stealing people's beauty that they can see, but also you kind of have to stop because your hands get full. You put it on your back, you'd probably float away. So it's not to take treasures. It's to be surprised. You look out at an expanse of water and you think, what could possibly be underneath there? You look out on the expanse of God's creation and you think, what's inside? Where's the beauty that I'm going to be surprised by? It's treasures that you spy out and enjoy for the moment. God surprises us by breaking through our preconceived notions. So, let's put on some spiritual snorkeling gear and see what God might show us as we enter the murky and mysterious waters of grace, mercy, and love. We might just see something astonishing. We might see faith in doubt. And what a beautiful gem that is to find, whether it's within ourselves or within somebody else.